Hello, listener. I am so happy you pressed play because you're going to be so inspired by my guest, Erika Andersen. She's a best-selling author, leadership coach, and the founding partner of Proteus, where she spent over 3 decades helping top leaders at companies like Spotify, Amazon, and Charter Spectrum navigate change and growth. Now in her 70s, Erika has turned her attention to a new kind of transformation: how to age magnificently. Her latest book, The New Old, Crafting Your Best Later Life, is a powerful and practical guide to creating a vibrant, purpose-filled third act. Oh, are you ready to glow? Me too. Welcome to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, Erika. I'm so thrilled you're here to share your insights and wisdom to help folks thrive after 65. How you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm doing fantastically. And what a great introduction. Thank you so
Well, Erika and listener, you know, we are all about aging out loud and proud on the Don't Be Caged by Your Age podcast. So, Erika, please share with folks your age and where you live.
I am 73 and I live mostly in Spain, in northern Spain with my husband. We're here about 3/4 of the time.
Ooh. And is that where you are today?
Yes. Yeah,
Yay,
here
there
I
she
am.
is.
I'm
I,
in Oviedo, Spain.
and was that a big transition? Have you been there for a while? Was that a decision you made for later years, or you fell in love with it decades ago?
A little bit of all of the above. I decided to learn Spanish about 9 years ago, and my husband said, well, let's vacation someplace where they speak Spanish, so you'll have to practice. And I'm not a big fan of the south of Spain where everybody goes. It's too hot and touristy kind of for me. But I read a couple of articles about the north of Spain and was really attracted. It talked about the mountains and the sea, and the people are lovely, and the landscape is lovely, and the food is great. And so we came here 8 years ago and just fell in love and just kept coming back. And then as our vision for our third act kind of evolved, we realized 3 or 4 years ago that this was really a perfect place, just kind of culturally and in terms of the community for us to age. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Well, Erika, you've spent decades helping leaders and organizations thrive through change. What inspired you to turn your lens toward aging and write The New Old, which I love that title? Was there a specific moment or realization that led you to explore what it means to age magnificently? Tell us more.
It's a great question. So I've previously written 5 books about leadership and change and learning. And whenever I write a book, it's always because I get curious and I'm trying to crack a code. Like for instance, the first book I wrote almost 20 years ago is called Growing Great Employees, and it's about that. How do you manage people well? That's an important code and something that I wanted to help people crack. So when the pandemic came along, I was in my late 60s and I was kind of spending a lot of time walking around outside, because everything else was kind of paralyzed. And I thought, I love my company. I'd been running my company at that point for 30 years. And I thought, I don't want to do this permanently. I don't want to keep working 50 hours a week and 60 hours a week. And so I need to really start thinking about my third act. What comes after this? And then I thought, oh, this is a cool new code. Oh, now I want to crack this code. How do you age really wonderfully? So that was the predicating moment.
Well, and this is what's so important, listener, is that we don't look at that milestone date. The clock strikes midnight on 65, that, okay, that's it. You need to make a new decision now. You can evolve into that decision, but having
Yes.
some careful thought around it, like, how do I want to spend my time? How do I want to allocate my energy portfolio? Because as you age, your energy is used in different ways than the big hustle and grind that we had in our earlier years. So I just love taking this time and reframing it, not as a
Yes.
time to end, but as a time to, how am I going to be fully expressed during these next few years, decades? Because we all know there's no expiration date on our booty. We don't know when that's going to happen. So it's still great to have a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan. And so this is what's so great about your cracking the code. And listener, I just want to share with you the first line from the New Old description on Amazon, because I think this is so important. Aging happens to everyone who's lucky enough to keep living. But aging magnificently is a choice. And this
Yeah.
book shows you how. So I know, listener, you can't wait to dig in and get all the good details. So, Erika, your book feels both deeply personal and highly practical, which we love, love, love. Blending your own journey and lessons about crafting a vibrant third act. So, what was your intention? We always love to think intentionality, right? Like,
Yes.
when I sit down and I'm writing this book, what am I creating here? And at the end, the outcome,
Yes.
what responses from readers would really make your heart sing with joy?
Oh, love that. Well, let me step back for just a sec to provide some context
Yeah.
for answering the question. So you know already, I want to crack the code of how do we do this? How do we age wonderfully, right? And as I was starting to think about it more in research, and this is the reason I called the book The New Old, is um, the first line in the book is I say, we human beings don't have much experience of being old. And we don't, it's hard to remember that now everybody we know, more or less, is going to live to be 65, 70, 80, whatever. And that's such a huge shift. So one statistic that I have in the book is 100 years ago in the world, 1 in 20 people were over 65.
Yep.
Okay. 100 years ago. Not very long. Now, 1 in 6 people are over 65.
Wow, I love that stat.
Isn't that amazing? So now it's common. It's common to be 65. And 100 years ago, it was unusual, right?
Right. And when Diane Keaton just passed the other day, oh my gosh, I said, she's only 79.
She's only 79. That is something that no human being would have said 50 years ago. Because now I'll give you another wonderful statistic that you'll love. It turns out that if you right now are a reasonably healthy 65-year-old and you don't smoke, you have even odds of living to be 90.
Oh my gosh. That reminds me of a guy I recently saw who's 90 and has a 5-year plan.
Precisely. So this is brand new in the history of humanity. It's always been 2 chapters and an epilogue, right? First chapter is you grow up, second chapter is you're an adult. The epilogue is you hang around for a couple of years and get increasingly weak, independent, and die, right?
I'm sorry, listener, I'm still howling over the what'd you say, 2 chapters and an epilogue?
And an epilogue, right? And now it's 3 full chapters.
Right.
The majority of people who are reasonably healthy, especially in the Western world, and have pretty good health and stuff, will live to be 70, 80, 90, 100. This is common. So it's the new old. So we need to think about it differently. It's not like, okay, you stop working and you're going to die in a few years. You could be around and healthy and vital for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So that when I wrote the book, that was my intention. I love that word intention, is that I would give people tools and framing, not little tactical, take this vitamin, eat this thing,
Oh,
do
no,
this
no.
extra. Big, like what are the mental skills that you need in order to be able to craft a life of joy and purpose and fun and challenge for these last 10, 20, 30 years, so that you're not just hanging around, so that you're having a wonderful time, right?
Right.
So that was my intention. If you said, what would really make my heart sing? Anybody who reads this book and thinks, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now I have really important tools to make this the kind of third act I want it to be. That's what I want to have
Yeah.
happen.
And I love this something fierce. When I was journaling, I journal every day, listeners, from the artist's way. Just sort of gets me going in the morning and juiced up. And I was thinking, I admire the women in their 30s and 40s and 50s who really have their act together. They're so knowledgeable. They're doing all the things. And I look back at my own age and who I was during those ages, and I feel sometimes shame. I feel wistful of the potential that was never realized. But guess what? And I think this is the biggest message behind the podcast and behind what Erika is saying is that, okay, so maybe you weren't that person like me who didn't figure it out in the first 50, 60 years, right? That doesn't mean it's over. You're not going to be on your deathbed going, I wish I had tried.
Exactly.
And the beauty of this age, Erika, which I can't say enough to folks, is we are so unshackled. There's like, I mean, yes, sometimes you have to be taking care of elder parents or children in some way, shape, or form, but most of us are footloose and fancy free, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I have been telling people a lot lately that the 70s are my best decade so far in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I said this because I found this wonderful community of really vital, smart, cool elders, especially elder women, but elders on Substack, where I have a Substack called The New Old. And I said in one post that I wrote, man, the 70s are my best decade yet. And this other woman who's 83 said, oh, wait till you're 80s.
See? Come on. And do you know the most common feedback I get for the podcast, Erica, is from the 40 and 50-year-olds going, oh my gosh, I can't wait to be 60 or 70
Yeah, yeah,
and
yes.
80.
No, I'm fortunate to have, so there's a group of women here in Spain that I get together with mostly every Thursday, and we range in age from 21 to 90. The oldest one is 90, the youngest one is 21. And it's just 5 or 6 of us, and the one of them, Barbara, who's in her 40s, says it's so inspiring for me to be around you, Erika, and Pilar, who's 90, and Mirencio, who's almost 80, because man, if this is what my future looks like, I am down, you know.
Right. But I also love that your group is intergenerational.
Yeah.
It's so important that we hang out with all the generations, listener. And that brings me to this one question that I think, especially in our age group, that we were shown growing up what old looked like. Old was the cardigan, stooped shoulders, maybe
Yeah,
a cane, maybe a walker, maybe, but done. Like life had
yeah,
like, and look, and when you look at that generation, you can understand why it could have been really hard. That was the World War, end of
yeah,
Civil War, World War One, World War Two. That generation, Depression, they really got beat up. But that was indoctrinated into us.
100%.
And so now we have these beliefs that even though we may not be conscious of this, they're telling us you're too old.
Yes.
How do you address that in your book and to help people sort of dissolve that so that they can let their who they want to become at this
Yes.
age out into the world?
Well, one of the ways is, as you know, there are 3 core principles in the book.
Right.
I decided to kind of create that frame for people. And the second principle is master your mindset. And it turns out that exactly what you're talking about, being able to shift your interior monologue, is key to aging well and not being held hostage by your own internal ageism, right? So in that section of the book, I teach people a way to manage your internal monologue that I've been teaching people for 40 years. It's very simple. It's very effective. And then I have another chapter about mindfulness, how to be just aware in the present moment, which it turns out is also associated with wonderful outcomes physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and then gratitude, how to create a gratitude practice. So I teach people the actual practical approaches to shifting your mindset. And there, again, I do love my statistics. My favorite piece of research in that section of the book is so the Yale School of Public Health did a wonderful study, a longitudinal study. It lasted more than 25 years ultimately. About 25 years ago, they took 700 and some people between the ages of 50 and 80. And they had them all fill out this true false questionnaire to ascertain their attitudes about aging, right? So they were questions like older people are a burden on society,
Ooh.
true or false, right? So if you say true, you have a pretty negative attitude about aging. If you have false, you have a more positive attitude. So then they just divided this group of 700 or 800 people just according to that, according to their attitudes about aging. And they followed them for 23 years. And they discovered that the group of people who had a more positive attitude about aging, and that was it. I mean, they sorted for all the other things, pre-existing health conditions. So they were really looking at the impact of that attitude, positive and negative. That group with the more positive attitude lived on average 7.6 years longer.
Wow. That's amazing. And
Amazing. So that's like twice. I mean, if you lowered your cholesterol and stopped smoking and lost weight, you'd maybe add 3 or 4 years to your life. Just having a positive attitude about aging added 7.5 years to their lives.
oh my gosh, this is
How
what's
amazing is that?
it's mind blowing. And listen, I just want you to remember, some aging doesn't just happen to us. And this is what Erica's talking about so beautifully. It's something that we can shape
Yes.
using that beautiful brain of ours. And
Yes.
so that we can have the right attitude going forward. So let's talk about some of those positive, without it being toxic positivity. We want it to be
Precisely.
good, positive mindset. Let's talk
Oh,
a
I
little
love
bit
that.
about those.
Yes. So yeah, I love this. Take it out of the theory and the research down. So let's say that you're just going about your day, and let's say you're 75, right? And to change your interior monologue, the first thing you have to do is hear it, right? So you have to recognize what you're saying to yourself. So let's say you're just sitting there having a cup of tea, and you find that you're feeling really disanimated, really unhappy, kind of bummed out. And you think, what am I saying to myself? And let's say you're saying to yourself, nothing good happens after 70. It's all downhill from here, right?
Old dog can't learn new tricks.
Right. And those are things that people say to themselves all the time. So it's all downhill from here. Let's just take that
Yeah.
one dreadful sentence, right? Okay. So what we found is that the way to shift your self talk is first recognize it. Oh my God, I'm actually saying that to myself. And then it's often very helpful to write it down because that separates you from it. It's kind of like you cut your hair, it doesn't belong to you anymore, you know? So when you write it down, it gets it out of your head. It doesn't feel like you anymore. It's this thing you're saying to yourself, right? So, wow, it's all downhill from here. And often people look at that and they go, "Oh my God, I don't even believe that. That's crazy. Why am I even saying my, because you're
Right.
more separate from it." So then, and this is the heart of the thing, if you want to change it, you have to put an alternative piece of self-talk and goes to your thing about toxic positivity, that is more hopeful, more supportive, but that you believe,
Right.
right? So if you say, "Oh, everything's going to be fantastic from here on," you won't believe that. You'll just bounce right back to your negative message. But
Right.
if you say something like, "I don't know that's true. I actually don't know what's coming, but I want to find out."
Right.
Right? That's not even positive. It's just neutral and open. I don't know what's coming. I want to find out. And then it becomes kind of like whack-a-mole. Every time you hear yourself saying, "Oh man, it's crap from here. It's terrible. I can't." No, no, wait. I don't know what's coming, but I
Right.
want to find out. So you can literally, it's like interior coaching, right? You can literally decide to speak to yourself differently.
This is so important, listener, because that level of curiosity is how we bring in those quote magical moments like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But it's because we become that third person almost looking out into our life going, ooh, I wonder what's next. How is
Yes.
this experiment going to
Yes.
unfold? And all of that. It puts your brain to work going, oh, I don't know, but let me help you out with that. And
Yes.
it's all
Yes.
the neuroplasticity and neuropsychology that goes to work for you.
100%. What a great way to say it. And then what you find out is when as you get it, as this becomes more habitual, kind of talking back to yourself like this, and the inside of your head will say, "Well, I could never." And you go, "Wait, wait, wait. Why not? Who says? Look, just try it, you know? Oh, I had a wonderful experience in this today. You will love this."
Oh,
So,
good. Tell me.
so I've been practicing yoga for many, many years. I started when I was a teenager. But I've never stood on my head. It always seemed kind of scary to me, like I was going to break my neck or something. So there's a woman that I've met on Substack named Anne Richardson
Oh,
who wrote a book called
love
The Great
Anne.
Stands on Her Head, right? And so, yeah, inspired by her, she's 10 years older than I am. I decided that I would try standing on my head. And with the help of my husband, who spotted me and then took a picture of me, I stood on my head today for the first time at 73. And I've been all day walking around like, "Oh my God, I did it. How cool is this?"
See,
Right?
this is so wonderful. And listener, you may remember our guest, Ginny McCall, who at the age of 64 was watching her daughter on American Ninja doing all the things, right? And going, you know what? I want to do a pull up. And so she went and spent the year learning how to do one pull up. Well, at the age of 72, fast forward 6, 7 years, she made the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest female ninja athlete.
Oh my
From that
God.
one, I just want to do a pull up. So it's just doing that one tiny step,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Where you go, oh, I want to try this or I want to try that, because we have to
Yes.
dissolve that big message that we often hear, which is, I'm too old for that. People are going to
I'm
look at me and saying, what are you doing? You're too old for
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. I'm too old. You're too old. We're too old. Another wonderful way in which I have broken through that is, so as I said, I decided to learn Spanish 9 years ago when I was whatever I was 9 years ago, 64. And so now I'm pretty fluent. I mean, I conduct my whole life in Spanish. And just the other day, I went out with this group I talked about, Las Tarantas, all Spanish for a couple hours. And then I went out with a friend. We spoke Spanish for 3 hours. And then I had to come home and do some stuff on the phone for my husband. And so many people have said to me over the years, oh, older people can't learn languages. You just don't have the neuroplasticity. Only young people can learn languages. It's just BS. We
It
can do pretty much whatever we want.
absolutely. And I recently wrote an article on Reddit, a post on Reddit called Boomers Are Tech Legends, Not Tech
Read
Challenged.
that. I loved it.
Oh my gosh, Erica, for data purposes, you would love the comments in the threads. I mean, first of all, they take us down memory lane big time. One person's comment was, oh, I remember in chemistry in college when my professor said, hey, you people with the handheld calculator sit in the back row. And she's like, what's a handheld calculator? and and she went on to program Fortran, personalized computers. Oh my gosh, the smarty pants of these folks who today are on top of AI, doing all
Yep.
the things. This is what we have to remember, folks. I, recently used the circle.so platform to create a online community at the age of 69. There's always a YouTube video for that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's a sense of accomplishment. You stood in your head. You learned Spanish. And I know sometimes we may be really separated from the super young generation, but I have a 27-year-old who often forgets why he walked into a room, who often can't remember a word, who often can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you start thinking, my brain is really happening. So keeping that growth muscle active is so
Yes.
important. And you talk about our ability to learn and grow as older folks
Yes.
and how it's a use it or lose it proposition. But at the same time, we are up against walls all the time from the world, who often tells us go slow down and relax. It's like back in the day when they said to women, go put your feet up and put your curlers in your hair. It's always
Right.
trying to diminish and devalue and belittle our
Yes.
existence. How,
Yes.
how can we better respond to moments where folks are coming back with those comments? Sure, boomer.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, boomer. Well, I think something you said at the very beginning, might have even been before we started recording, about how old, being old out loud and proud is the best, living well is the best revenge. And I just feel like it's a version of Mahatma Gandhi saying, be the light that you want to see in the world. So if we want to show people what being old can be,
Right.
then let's be that,
Let's
you
be
know?
that. And we're old enough to know that we don't care.
Yeah.
You can really sit there and say, and again, that's that internalized talk that you have to manage, because someone could say that ageist remark to you and you go, oh, yeah, they're right. I think I'll shrink instead of taking center stage. You're shrinking with your age. And so on, listener, you know what I'm always saying, pastures are for horses, not humans.
And I completely agree with everything you're saying. And the third principle is get good at change. And
Yes.
the reason I talk about that is because a lot of younger people, part of ageism is people think that older people's lives are, they're out to pasture. Nothing's ever happening. It's stagnant. It's boring. But really, when you get old, the changes that happen are often of the most difficult kind,
Right.
because there are things you don't really want to have happen and they come at you. They're not really your choice. Somebody you love dies.
Yes.
Children move far away. You have a health issue. So I think it's more important for older people to get good at change than for anybody. So in the first chapter in that section, the last book I wrote before this was about change. It's
Right.
called Change from the Inside Out. And I give a process for using, again, your mindset to help you go through change. But then the second chapter in that section is called Modify Gracefully. And it's not about going out to pasture, but it's about recognizing when either physically or mentally or emotionally you need and want to modify some part of your life. I always it's the pickleball versus tennis, when I notice myself, like I never needed much sleep in my life. Now I need more sleep. And
Wow.
I can pretend that that wasn't true, but that doesn't serve me.
No.
So fortunately, I'm in a situation where I'm not working 50 or 60 hours a week. I can sleep more. I can sleep 8 hours a night. If I have a very, demanding day and get tired, I can come home and take a little nap. I
That's
can
right.
rest more, right? So it's modified gracefully. It's not kicking and screaming through whatever changes come. And what I find is that if I modify my life physically and mentally and emotionally in the way that best serves me, then it allows me to keep having a wonderful life rather than to hurt myself on some level, right?
Right. And listen, what Erica and I were chatting about before I hit record was the fact that this age is so liberating. Am I
Yeah.
right? I mean, yes, we still have some responsibilities, but it's not the intense responsibilities we had for decades. And and again, that's everybody's circumstance is different, but there's just this freedom that has happened that you're like, ooh. And I know you're a data loving goddess, Erica. So I read a study from the World Health Organization in 2021 when they declared retirement an epidemic costing societies billions of dollars
Mm,
because of the fact that folks were retiring and then feeling a lack of purpose, feeling
yes.
invisible,
Yes.
no
Yes.
connection, and they were sitting on their couch, and then the illnesses started coming in and everything started
Yes.
cropping in. So that's why this new old book that you've written is so key and needs to be a guide for everyone
Oh,
around them.
thank you. And just to pick up on that, so since we've talked about the second and third principle, as you know, the first principle is be the boss of your life.
Right.
And the beginning or really the genesis of that was exactly what you're saying, that I had read all this research about how people retire and then they're just adrift. Men especially, who tend to be more identified with their work lives than
Hmm.
women. And so the first part of that is, okay, don't stop visioning. Purpose doesn't retire. Figure out what you want to be like as an older person and the kind of life you want to have as an older person, and let those things be your North Star.
Right.
In the same way that it's critical to have a vision for your business, and I helped people do that for 30 years, or for yourself as what you want your career to be, how you want your kids to turn out, have a vision for this third act and then make a plan and build your team and make that happen.
And think like a young millennial or a Gen Z. I'll do this for 3 years. you know,
Exactly.
You can have a
Exactly.
season. It can be a few months. Pull on those threads. There's no shame or blame if something doesn't work out, or you will win, you will learn, you will grow and glow from that experience. Let's
Yes.
talk about your Substack essay because I loved this. It's called How 90 Can Be Awesome. And you highlight examples of people who are thriving in their 90s,
Yep.
not despite their age, because of how they approach it. So, what do they have in common, and how can those of us decades younger start cultivating that
Yep.
mindset now?
I love that. So the people that I know, and especially this one wonderful woman that I highlight in that article, whose name is Pilar, and she just turned 90. We're all celebrating. She said she's so great. She's doing like a month-long celebration of her birthday. She's like, I only turned 90 once. I'm just going to keep having parties. And three things I've noticed about Pilar, and that I've also noticed in other people that I know who are in their 80s and 90s who are really thriving. One is that she looks at her life as open-ended. I mean, she has said to me, I could live for 2 more years or 10 more years, maybe 15, but not 30. She has said to me, I'm probably not going to live to be 120, but I could live to be 100. So it's that combination of every moment is precious because I'm not going to be here for another 60
Right.
years like a young person is. And who knows, just that open-ended, let's find out. This is fun. And that's combined in her and other people I know with a deep curiosity. I mean, she loves having me as a friend because she's never had an American as a friend, and I can speak because she's lived in Spain all her life.
Yeah.
So, I can speak Spanish well enough that she can ask me, what about this? And how did you decide this? And she's just so curious. So I think curiosity is it's like the fountain of youth.
It
If you can just stay curious, then that's, I think you got it about 80% hacked. So
absolutely.
open-ended thing, curiosity. And then the third thing is she just stays as active as she can physically.
Yeah.
She lives in her apartment and she walks all around the city we live in is very walkable, which really helps. She walks all around the city. She, meets different people and goes to classes, and she just stays as active as she can. So those are the three things that I've seen that really characterize the people I know in their
Right.
late years who are having a wonderful time.
And as someone who lives with anxiety, one of the things I have to constantly do with my mindset listener is shifting into that open end, that curiosity, because I can sit there and be anticipating any minute now, either my beloved life partner, husband is going to kick the bucket, or I am, or something terrible is going to happen, that other shoe about to drop stuff. So,
Yeah.
you just have to take the reins and just go, okay, but we're going to be curious. We're going to stay open
Yes.
ended
Yeah.
and live as if we do have decades ahead of
Yeah.
us. And if
Yeah.
something shifts, then we can deal with it. How do you help folks with that who have my condition, which is like, oh my God, because you start seeing your friends drop in and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to another life celebration again. When is it going to be me? And so
Yeah.
instead of living in that fear, how can we live in hope?
Oh, love that. So it goes back to that mastering your mindset. So much of this just arises out of us saying terrible things to ourselves.
Right.
We're most people I found are much meaner to themselves than they are to anybody else. And we say things to ourselves that we would never say to
Never.
a friend or a loved one. You'd never walk up to a friend and say, "You're probably going to die today." But we say that kind of crap to ourselves all the time, right? So just I feel like what I said before about learning to recognize what you're saying, shift it to something more hopeful and believable. And the underlying thing is just to be kind to yourself,
Yeah.
right? Just
Right.
when you say something unkind to yourself, you go, no, no, no,
Mm,
I don't want to talk to myself like that. That's mean. No, what do I want to say? What I want to say is I'm living my life in the best way possible. And I wanna have a wonderful time as long as I'm here. Yes,
yes.
that's what I say.
Take those negative thoughts and attach them to a helium balloon and wave to them or lift them out like roots and weeds in your garden and toss them into the compost bin. They
Oh,
do not serve us.
exactly, exactly. And then in addition to that, there's another as I mentioned, there's another chapter in that section about mindfulness. And mindfulness can be a deep spiritual practice, but it also can be very simply just noticing what's happening in the present moment without judgment. That's kind of
Right.
the Western version of mindfulness.
Yeah.
I have in that chapter, I have three increasingly sort of challenging, I guess, mindfulness activities. But the first one, which I really would encourage anybody to do, is just, especially when you're in a kind of negative mindset and your mind is going, oh, my husband's going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. Just stop
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, maybe today. To just stop and pick out something in your environment that you really like. So it might be a beautiful plant, it might be an outside view that you have, it might be a painting on your wall. Just stop, take a deep breath or two, and just notice that thing for a few minutes. You don't have to think about it. You don't try and make it do anything. You just notice it. And there's all kinds of research that shows that pure mindfulness, just noticing something in your environment that you hear or see or smell or taste that's positive to you is hugely calming. And it brings you back into the moment and kind of gives the lie to all those negative
Right.
predictions that our mind does, you
Yeah.
know?
I love that. Reminds me of Baba Ramdas, everybody. Remember Be Here Now in the early 70s
Oh,
and late
exactly.
60s? Such
Exactly.
a good book.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful advice that you are sharing with us, and it's tactical. It's not just a broad brush. Well, if you do this or do that. No, it's actual steps and thoughts and ways of being and becoming. And I use that word becoming, folks, because when we step into intentionality of like, what's my 6-month plan or 1 year plan, it's really about who do I want to be at the end of that
Yes.
time period?
Yes.
And it could be a gentler person to myself. It could be engaged in something that fuels my pocketbook as well as my passion and my purpose, whatever that is. And Erica's book, The New Old, will really help you get there. And you
Mhm.
know what I love to say, shift happens. So, so Erica, what's lighting up your life today? Let's like both professionally and personally. You've come out with this great book and you're doing all these things and you've got your great community in Spain.
Yeah.
What specifically is lighting you up that you see might be lighting you up for a few months or a few years ahead?
Yeah. Oh, love that. That connects beautifully with as you know, there are the three principles in the book. And then the last chapter is called Connection, a thread that runs through everything. And it turns out, I mean, we've all heard about this, that there's a kind of an epidemic of loneliness in older
Yes.
people. And there are lots of factors of that. Divorce is much more prevalent in people in their 60s and older than it's ever been. People now over 60 are the generation most likely to be childless of any generation. We're more likely not to live near previous communities, near our, work
Mm-hmm.
communities or the communities of our children or the parents of our children. And so people are more likely to be alone, which doesn't, that doesn't absolutely mean you're going to be lonely, but you're more likely to be lonely. And that older people often aren't that good at making new connections because
Right.
the connections that are fraying for them are connections they've had their whole lives, spouses, children, work colleagues. So I talk in that chapter about how to make new connections, how to decide the
Nice.
kind of people you want to be connected to, and then how to make those connections. And interestingly, I would say that that's the thing that's lighting me up most now. I have so many wonderful new friends in Spain, both expats and Spanish people, since I can speak Spanish, and also on Substack with this Substack that I'm writing, The New Old. So many wonderful, wonderful elders on Substack. I'm continually honored and
Oh,
pleased and happy. And so that, again, who knew that in my 70s I was going to be
right?
making a bunch of wonderful new friends? The fact that we're having this conversation and then we connected through Marianne,
I
it's
know.
it's wonderful.
It really is. And that's why, listener, I launched New England Podcasters Group because I wanted to hang out with indie podcasters in person of all ages, of all types and personalities, etc. And I didn't wait to find a community like that. I took the chance, I took the risk of launching this group. And that's what we can do as we age too. We can still take risks. And
Yes.
I think that's so important. I think you talk about that as well in the new old that doesn't have an expiration date either.
Yeah.
Purpose, passion, ambition, none of it. But this is with the true understanding that as we get older, we get less tolerant. And as a result, we have to really use our discernment about who we want to hang out with because,
Yes.
again, we don't have time for that nonsense. We only have, again, so much time left. And
Yes.
so we want to be with folks who also help feed us and reciprocity is happening. And we know from the studies, I'm sure you have the data, that actually the number one ingredient for longevity is connection and community, not what you ate, drank, did
No.
all those things, right?
100%. And to one a little bit on that. So, one of the things we love about living in Spain is that older people are a part of the community. They're not off kind of ghettoized. Like
Yeah,
every day
warehoused.
and warehouse, exactly. Like, so I have a friend who's in her early 60s and her dad, who is 92, his spouse, her mom, died a few years ago, and he moved out of their apartment and he moved right across the street into what they call here residencia. They're assisted living, but
Yeah.
they're right in the neighborhood. So he still hangs out with all his old friends in the cafeterias and walks around and has his same little walks that he does every day. He's in the community, and she's 5 minutes away, and her sisters are 5 minutes away. So staying in the community, I
Right.
think, is critically important.
It's so important. People think retirement means to go somewhere, of course, where the weather is easier, but I think it's just where is home? What feels right to
Yes.
you, right?
Yes.
Where are you going to find that level of community? Oh my gosh, this has been such a delicious conversation. Erika, how can folks follow you, connect you, buy your book, and especially share your Substack link? Because that conversation sounds wonderful. And listen, if you haven't played on Substack yet, you will love it. It is the written
Yes.
word with some audio and video thrown in, of course,
Yeah.
but comments are welcome, and you can see wonderful threads of conversations on Substack.
Yes. My Substack is the new old, but it's Erika Andersen. You can see how my name is spelled here on the screen. Both names are spelled oddly, so it's great because I'm the only one. So Erika Andersen one.substack, and same on LinkedIn, Erika Andersen, and my own website,
Yeah.
erikaandersen.com. So
And I will have all the links in the show notes, folks, to make it very easy for you to click and play.
the book is on Amazon in all possible hardback, paperback, Kindle, audio, the whole
Woohoo!
shebang. Yeah.
I'm listening to the audio, folks, because I love doing jigsaw puzzles and listening to audio. That makes my heart sing with joy. Listener, now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on today's episode? Come share your insights and takeaways with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Just search for Don't Be Caged by Your Age, or hop on over to Erika, Erika Andersen, Andersen, on Substack, and say howdy do to her as well and ask her some questions that you have from today's episode. What a joy to spend time with you, Erika, and your perspective on aging magnificently is such a powerful reminder that we can all keep learning, exploring, and thriving at every age. Thank you for joining me for this delicious conversation.
Thank you so much. What an absolutely fun interaction. This has been fantastic.
Wonderful. We love hearing that. Until next time, my friends, stay strong, stay courageous, stay curious. Keep growing and keep glowing. Wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Cheers from Boston, everyone. Listeners, I'm so grateful you carved out time to tune in and grab the gems from this delicious conversation. Be sure to hop on over to Don't Be Caged by Your Age on LinkedIn or Instagram to share your thoughts about ageism and unretirement. Because in this space, your age doesn't define you, it refines you. If you are inspired by a story you hear, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, share, rate, and review the podcast. To receive an alert whenever a new show is posted, please join the Don't Be Caged by Your Age newsletter. Every month, you'll receive links to the podcast and helpful resources for creating possibilities for your unretirement days. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to hear how you found ways to thrive after 65. Waving from Boston, cheers.